Yeah.
We were all now. When I was counting seven.
The one that goes across the river. No, I haven't, but I did the Iron Man, so.
I did.
That's way bigger. I was trying to figure out if I think that she's switching.
I think it depends on the
Folders,
the trail one.
Grass Army Depot was paying essentially for all their EMS activities. That's no longer there. It was that boy down to the budget and the rest. It came out, so it was not their fault.
Like a year ago.
Cause the other one you did.
Yeah.
We should keep birds in the back. Right, you guys let me know when we're ready.
Okay, it's good short though, because we used to do our say here.
Okay.
Conversation.
No lurking in the back.
I just like a subcommittee members.
Very key.
Close.
Presidential type position.
I mean, that's exactly how you can have it as president.
How do you work here?
How are things at KYTC?
Couldn't be better.
You've got nothing going on right now.
No, and it doesn't have a lot to do with me, so somebody else.
You've never heard about 65?
Yeah, it's like, it's a big fire at KYTC, but it's not in my department.
Are there any?
Focus.
Yeah, that's right.
We're all really excited about the investment.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of investment right now, isn't there?
But you know what I'm worried about is that $26 million per month that we're not devoting to maintenance because of this.
The what?
The gas tax.
Oh, yeah,
Was that true? 26 million?
well,
Across the state?
it's probably worse than that, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's such a.
But Kentucky is better transportation, they 26 million. For Judge Summers, that no one can fill his shoes, but I will do my very best. So I'm happy to see everyone and would like to start with the roll call.
Thank you very much. Who do we have today from Bullitt County?
Here.
Anybody from City of Charlestown? City of Jeffersontown?
Here.
City of Jeffersonville? City of New Albany?
Here.
City of Shadley? How about City of St. Matthews?
Bernie's here.
Hello, Bernie. Clark County?
Present, here.
Brian? Floyd County? NDOT Central Office, I should say. NDOT Seymour?
Julie's here.
Hi, Julie. See Haley too.
Haley's- I'm here too.
Y'all for joining us. Jefferson Cities here. KYTC. See what I got on here. Louisville Metro Government.
Present?
Thank you. Louisville Regional Airport Authority.
Here.
Oldham County. Town of Clarksville. Kevin, I saw you unmute. Hello, Kevin. And then Park.
Here.
Join us, Leanne. I think I saw Rob Monsman on the line too. Thank you all for joining us. Let's see Jeffrey on the line as well. Thank you all for joining us. Who did we miss? Tony McClellan from NDOT Seymour. Wes Sidner from Louisville Metro. Thank you all for joining us. Ryan Davis from Metro. Greg, did I miss anybody?
I don't think so.
All right, thank you all for being here. We definitely have a quorum and we missed you guys last month. And I guess we should recognize our advisory members, including KYTC District 5, Tom Hall's here. And then our TTCC, chair this month was, Planner O'Neill. She's at the table as well. Thank you all for joining us.
Well, Andy, it's good to be back. And
Sure.
with that, I know March feels like a distant memory, but item number 2 is the review of the March minutes. If everybody wants to just take a second to skim down.
There is a correction on members present. I have to say this, Jerry Summers is not from Oakland County.
You're not claiming him?
I'm just going on record as the one that found that, so.
Oh,
just-
good call.
Okay, that is a good call.
All
It's an
right.
eagle eye you have.
That's
Okay, well, may I have a motion to approve the minutes with the appropriate county reflected for Judge Summers?
So moved. Second.
Excellent. All in favor? Excellent. The minutes are approved. We will move to item number 3, public comment period. And Greg, you're on deck.
Yes, did not receive any public comments prior to the meeting, did not see any in the chat, but if there's no other business, I will bring it up.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Item number 5, the Unified Planning Work Program.
This will be number 4.
Oh, number 4, the Public Involvement Report. Thank you. Also, Greg.
Yes. My screen real quickly. All right, so we'll do the May edition of the outreach report. This covers the last couple of months. First up is the social media analytics for March and April. You see on the left side there, March, Instagram, big numbers, for that month, much more than usual. That's kind of an outlier, but, over 1,700, views on that. Facebook with a good number at 1,290. And then, on the right side there, 1,500 for April. Sliding back down on those Instagram numbers to a little bit more of our general numbers that, at 692, still good numbers, but that's more what we average. The reason for the Instagram numbers being so high there in March is basically because of this one share right here, the Barrett Avenue public meeting. We shared it. It had over 410 views. Nearly 75% of our non-followers saw it, so that's a big thing. 8 shares. So that helped boost those numbers in March and kind of give us that outlier for March, but still good. So engagements and impressions, Facebook still solid there. You see 1,000 for the engagements and impressions, and Twitter also doing really well. X 412, 494. That's pretty average for what we pull in. So it's good to see 2 straight months of solid numbers there. X has been up and down usually, as most people know, especially with us. So kind of a roller coaster. Good to see us kind of leveling out maybe a little bit there. Website analytics. So in March, the main page was the big one, 219 visitors. Tip page in the MTP at 146 and 58. But in April, numbers went up a little bit on the tip page and the MTP, which was not surprising. We had an amendment, public comment period for that. So that obviously drives those numbers up in the website visits. And as I mentioned, the amendment to the tip. Chris is going to talk about that here in a little bit, but I'll run through the outreach portion of that. Ran April 28th through May 12th. We collected 5 comments in total. Those are the 5 right there on your left. As you can see, we had a question about whether the project was doable in the phases. Wanted to do some bike lanes, traffic calming with 16 million. Most people are pretty happy with the projects that they were commented on. The map was a little different this time around. Instead of liking projects, folks had the ability to go on and rank projects. So it was from 1 to 5, you could rank it up. We had 4 projects that were ranked all at 5. 3 of the rankings went to the Reimagine Ninth Street project. 2 of them went to the Ninth Street Pedestrian Improvements Project, and then the Olmsted and the Louisville Transportation Safety Improvement Project also got rankings of 5. And let's see, social media for that run. Our paid campaign, we had over 12,000 reach, 5,000 impressions, and that led to over 1,200 website visits. So number wise, we were really strong. It just didn't reached, it just didn't correspond with the comments. I'm not really sure what the difference is there, why we didn't get the comments that we normally do, but we had really good, strong numbers there. Organically, we had almost 1,000 views on all three platforms for our stuff there. We did our MailChimp. Our first one went out announcing the opening of that. Well, 1,400 recipients, 612 opens, 174 link clicks. Those are all really good numbers. 1,500 recipients with 445 opens and 127 link clicks for the public meeting. Let's see, events and comments. Event season kicked off in March. We went to Earth Fest. We were also at Tree Fest in April, as well as Party for the Planet at the Louisville Zoo. All three events have been really good. We've been doing our NTP outreach as well, and all those, as you can see, that's in the photo there. Folks were really loving that. We did receive several comments though through those events. One of them said access for blind citizens. Another person wanted to add light rail to the area. And then a couple other people said ensure waiting areas and buses are well lit and visible. And then also safety of Cane Run Road, need lights in bus stops, and also need bus lines for Riverport Industrial. That wraps up my report. I will take any questions if anybody has them.
I just have a comment. I really like the graphs, the way that you're graphing them. It's very helpful.
Shit, that's a new thing I tried this month, so.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for the public involvement report. Next, we have the Unified Planning Work Program. Andy, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, ma'am. So we talked a little bit about our fiscal 27 Unified Planning Work Program at our March meeting. The lack of an April meeting kind of put us in a little bit of a different spot than we're usually in. That is that April is when these are due to our state and federal planning partners. So I will go over our fiscal 27 work program here today. I'm going to go to the next slide here and talk about some of the highlights. So for those that don't know, a UPWP, a Unified Planning Work Program, basically it's one of the key required documents that an MPO is supposed to develop each and every year. Describes what we do, how much it'll cost, what we're going to spend our money on, where the money comes from. Includes, in our case, all the kind of the key MPO work elements that go toward all of our efforts here as KIPP MPO staff. Our rideshare program, every community council, of course, is in there as well. Includes some of the planning studies, the streetlight subscription, and other data products that we acquire. It's also required to include discretionary grants. Last year's work program was required by the FTA to include the TARC downtown transit center planning efforts. So that was an amendment that TPC approved probably last fall. Next slide, please. So here's the schedule. It's a little different than usual, and it looks like we've got a random and in there. So back in March, I presented what we had at the time. We still didn't have all of the comments from the commenters, including Federal Highways Administration. And so at that time, we didn't have a final document to present to you all. But what this TPC approval was and the board approval, this is a budgetary document. So I'll be taking this to the board today as well, just like I did in March at 2 o'clock. Was authorized us as MPO staff to go ahead and submit the final and then come back to you guys in this month for what I assume will be ratification. I don't want to assume too much, but ratification here today. Let's see, then what's been going on, and probably no slowdown except for one exception, is that May and June is when all the new year contracts get developed. So that's already in the works, well in the works. Next slide, please. So here's some of the funding changes that I think are notable that I included. So in Kentucky, the PL funding, PL is for metropolitan planning, those are federal metropolitan planning dollars. That will increase by about 4% to 60,000 by about $60,000. I think that bottom line number, I think it's like 1.4 million and change, if I'm not mistaken. That was an increase that was received by all MPOs across Kentucky. The KYT Central Office changed the formula just a little bit to give everybody what's called a cost of living adjustment this year. KYTC continues to provide a 10% match on PL funding. That's pretty notable because on the PL funds from Kentucky, we match it at 10%. The other funds are required to be matched at 20%. fun fact, the bill that was, the new federal surface transportation authorization that was, drafted and came out last week. It's not been approved yet by Congress. But it suggests that in the future, these PL funds might be a 90-10 situation for everyone. So that'd be a huge win, for planning agencies and local governments across the country. So more on that whenever Congress gets around to voting on that and approving that potentially. Our Kentucky Section 5303 dollars, those are the funds that we get from Federal Transit Administration. We sought out an increase of $25,000, about 10% from $250,000 to $275,000 for this year. KIPTA had not received any additional money from that for many years, and they said, okay. And then they said, not only okay, they said, hey, we've got a little bit extra money. Could KIPTA spend an extra $47,000 this year? And KIPTA said, yeah, I think we could. And more on that on these upcoming agenda items on what we have planned for some of those dollars this year. In Indiana, there was a funding decrease this year by about 10%, $37,000. That came on the heels of a chain of a decrease last year and a little bit the year before last too. But we do think it's going to stabilize going forward. What's happened there, I mentioned earlier, KYTC Central Office does a funding formula that distributes these funds across the MPOs across Kentucky. NDOT does the same. And in this case, in the Indiana formula, with advice from some of the MPOs in Indiana, all the MPOs, I guess, were part of it in some way, shape, or form. That funding distribution formula changed a little bit, and also the 2020 census was fully put into play. So if our region, for instance, didn't grow as fast as the others, then we might lose a little bit of our share as a percentage. And what really happened is Indianapolis ended up getting a fairer share than they were getting before. Indianapolis was not getting its fair share, and so they are getting a fairer share now, and that's something we can appreciate. I think on the Kentucky side, we're the large MPO, the big city MPO, if you will. So we can appreciate that at some level. Having said all that, important to note, KIPTA still receives per capita more money, more of these federal dollars via NDOT, via Indiana, than we do from Kentucky via KYTC per capita. Per capita, we still get more. Bottom line is that of these two funds, the dollar amount's about 2.1 million, and that's a net increase of about 95,000 from last year. Next slide, please. So some of the highlights on kind of what else is in there, and what maybe a little bit what's changed. I mentioned now our PL 5303 is up a little bit. The overall funding that is shown in there is down, but there's no cause for alarm, none whatsoever. As I mentioned, FDA had us put that park planning study in there. We had a few other planning studies that were in there. I think we even had the SS4A and our railroad grant in there. Those aren't in there because those are well underway or complete, so they're not in our new one. So we're still good. No cause for alarm in there. The Every Commute Counts program. What's been proposed is a funding reduction on the Kentucky side. That is, we haven't been spending all the money that's been allocated by the TPC in that program, just due to ridership and other reasons. And so for fiscal 27, we're basically cutting that dollar amount to be more in line with what we could actually use or spend. And so that's the good news for that. Very good news for that is that I think it's roughly $250,000 federal dollars. That goes back into the bucket. That goes back in the bucket for the Kentucky sponsors to acquire through calls for projects and otherwise. We also had last year we had assumed a larger carryover for Indiana funds. Indiana allows us to carry over these planning dollars. Kentucky does not. So that's a little bit why there's a little bit of change there. Very importantly for this coming year, we have some money set aside as we typically have in the last several years for planning studies. The call for studies deadline was April 11th, and we will hear more about that in our very next agenda item. Brady will be talking about that just in a moment. And then also, we've put a little more than usual reserved for contract services. So we will be talking about what we have in store or in plan for those dollars in agenda item number 9. It has to do with the project management guidebook and some of the third-party consultation that we plan to put in place if the TPC approves the recommendations for the new guidebook later today. Complete Streets Planning remains for year 2. What does that mean? That means that there's a way that this agency and MPOs can get unmatched federal dollars for complete streets planning activities. And so a small part of our program is those complete streets planning dollars. And so we should get unmatched dollars again for those efforts. Next slide, please. Here. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. Most of the rest of the UPWP, probably if you looked at it in the past, you'd say this looks a lot like last year's and years before. So a little bit of emphasis on the key work elements in the MPO program. There's been just a little shift to our long range planning, and the reason for that is we've got a long range plan update that's due next springtime. So we're going to be putting probably more efforts on that than we might have in this past year or two. So again, that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Andy? Okay, well, this item does require a vote, so may I have a motion to approve? Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, the item is approved.
Thank you all.
We'll move on to item number 6. This is the call for studies planning funds. And Brady, you're up, sir.
Greg, I think that's the wrong slide. Sorry, I think I have the numbers mixed up.
Oh, just that six numbers.
It's a sneak peek.
This one seems more exciting.
Yeah.
There.
This is an exciting. So in previous, Andy just mentioned PL funds, and that's what this call for studies is using is a portion of our PL dollars we set aside for planning studies typically every year. So that's what this call for studies is about. In fiscal year 25, we had 3 studies that were funded using this process. One to the University of Louisville, one to Clarksville, one to Floyd County. And then this year, ongoing fiscal year 26, we have 2 studies that are wrapping up right now. Louisville Metro's Freight Mobility Action Plan and a project from Shepherdsville, their traffic master plan for Central Fulton County. Looking ahead to fiscal year 27, these are the dollars Andy was talking about that's broken down from both Kentucky and Indiana, both from as well as the FTA section 5303 funds. To make a long story short, this means that we have $125,000 available to put towards the study for this fiscal year. This was announced in March, and then the application period opened throughout the month of April, and then in May, staff had the opportunity to review applications, and we are here at TPC today, looking for approval for this process. One note for these projects, they must be complete by the end of the fiscal year. In this case, it would be June 30th, 2027. So the earlier that we are able to get a contract in place, the more time that the project sponsor will be able to work on their study. So that will be the priority after this meeting pending approval. We only received 1 application this year. Usually we have a few and we have to make decisions. This year we only need 1, and they asked for $125,000, which is the full amount. And so there's not a whole lot of controversy here. Lead agency is TARC. Other agency involved is Louisville Metro. The title of the proposed study is the TARC bus stop accessibility analysis study. This study they will hire consultants to perform a thorough analysis of the ADA accessibility of at least 200 TARC bus stops along the highest density corridors of the new TARC network, especially where those corridors align with Metro's high injury corridors. Stark Metro do not have a complete up-to-date understanding of where gaps exist in the accessibility of its network of bus stops. They know that there are many components that are out of compliance with both TARC and public right-of-way accessibility guideline design standards, but there's not a comprehensive database of those locations. Where stops are not accessible to people who use mobility aids, either because they lack things like boarding pads or contiguous sidewalks, or sidewalks is in such bad repair that it makes the use of a mobility aid unsafe. So they want to try to improve that accessibility at these stops. The project does align with KIPTA's long-term goals and objectives in relation to safety, sustainability, and strengthening public transit. With that said, action requested to approve PL funding from this call for studies for this TARC project as proposed.
Okay, thank you, Brady. Quick question. As part of this, I'm assuming, and maybe this is a question for TARC, will there be a condition assessment that runs along with this in terms of ADA? Is it like will there be a overall condition assessment of the stop, I guess I should say? Does that make sense?
Yes, it is going to be what the condition of the stop is, if it's ADA accessible, and if it's not, what can we do to make it that way? We're also going to look at least 2 or 3 blocks on either side and the cross to see about connecting, residents to be able to get to those bus stops. So.
Okay, will it include like this stop has a shelter, this stop has a bench?
Yes. We actually have a list of those amenities. We just don't know if they're all ADA accessible. But that will be part of the assessment that they will do. They'll give us an updated on the street live of those 200 stops.
Okay. All right, any questions? All right, this item requires a vote. May I have a motion?
I move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, seems like the planning study will be a success. Brady, you mentioned earlier the cost increases, so would you like to proceed with item number 7?
There will be 2 actions requested in this agenda item. So I'm going to talk about the Indiana cost increase request first, and then we'll have a requested action, and then I will talk about the Kentucky portion of this agenda item, and we'll have a second requested action. So first with Indiana, first to give just a brief summary of our status for fiscal year 26. So I have excellent news that we as in our LPAs, our project sponsors this fiscal year, have obligated 100% of all of our sub-allocated computer dedicated funds in Indiana this year. That breaks down briefly $200,000 for the CARE program, $127,000 to KIPTA's ECC program, and then $200,000 of swapped Group 3 funds for a PE phase for New Albany Slate Run Road Phase 2 project, $360,000 of swapped Group 3 funds for the PE phase of Floyd County's Bridge 38 project, $315,000 of PE funds for Floyd County's Highway 150 Break Highlander Point project, another $161,000 of swapped Group 3 funds for PE phase for Floyd County's Baylor Wisman Hilltop project, $142,000 for additional PE funds for Clark County's CR 311 project, $252,000 for PE funds for New Albany Spring Street and Behavioral projects. A lot of beginning stages on these projects, but then $6.3 million for the construction engineering work for Floyd County's Bridge 51 project. So that was a big ticket item in fiscal year 26. Looking ahead to fiscal year 27.
Brady, if I can stop you right there.
Sure.
The Indiana MPO directors, we met this morning, and I think that both Brady and the LPAs in our region, that is a big deal, that 100% number right there. Not all the regions have 100% this year, and a lot of them have struggled there. And there's, as we all know, there's a lot of stumbling blocks that these projects face. And this is a big deal for us to get 100%. So big shout out to Brady and to the staffs at all the LPAs for getting us that number this year.
Also like to, shout out of appreciation to NDOT. Several of these PE phases that I just mentioned were available to be obligated in this fiscal year because NDOT agreed to swap Group 3 funds with our KIPTA MPO dedicated funds. There were some unfortunate circumstances at the end of fiscal year 25 that were outside of KIPTA's control. But without NDOT working with us on that, several of these PE phases wouldn't have had funding for this fiscal year. So also appreciated of that from NDOT. Looking ahead to fiscal year 27, Clarksville's Progress Way is looking to let, that's going to be the big ticket item for this upcoming fiscal year. We're doing everything we can to make sure that that project continues on schedule. There are a couple of scheduling concerns for 2 projects in fiscal year 27 that we are going to be monitoring and will be a topic of discussion in the next quarterly meeting on our Indiana side. What I want to discuss today is, I mentioned we obligated 100% of our funds that were available. Well, NDOT recently has informed KIPTA staff that their estimation of the authorization spending authority was slightly underestimated for fiscal year 26. And now they had better estimates, and with their new estimates, we have been informed we have an additional $61,615 that we have to obligate by the end of the federal fiscal year, September 30th this year. And so the proposed distribution of these $61,000 is shown here, $11,274 for the County Bridge 51 project to cover some, a little bit of extra funds needed for design on that project as it continues to construction. And then the remaining $50,341 to Clark County CR 311 project to help cover their needs for PE. This was discussed at the most recent Indiana quarterly meeting in April and recommended for approval by the TTCC a couple weeks ago. So action is requested to approve the proposed Indiana cost increase requests.
Any questions on the Indiana? May I have a motion?
So
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, looks like Indiana is approved. Now you're gonna proceed to Kentucky.
yes. This one has a little more backstory to it. All right. Okay, we're at the next stage for our quarterly cost increase process. An announcement for MPO dedicated cost increase requests was made via email to Kentucky ETCC representatives on March 3rd. KIPTA staff received one MPO dedicated cost increase application asking for $212,000 in additional design funds. This request was discussed at the biannual meeting in March of Kentucky sponsors as well. Remaining in our current fiscal year 26 STPG cost increase reserve, we have $299,019 still available. And so this request is less than that. So we have enough money to cover this one request. This project is KIPTA ID 3042, state ID 5-80110. This project is to construct a sidewalk along Mount Holly Road, Kentucky, 2055. From Charlene Drive to Fox Avenue. It connects to the Coral Ridge Elementary School that is located there. Normally, this is a very easy request. There are no other competitors. We have enough money. Proceed to recommend approving funds. But this project has a little more history. That the context is important to share before you make your decision. So this project was listed in the 2020 state highway plan with SPP dollars. You can see here in 2020, it was listed outside the biennium years, so not in 2020, not in 2021, not in 2022, but the outer years. It's our understanding that SPP funds within the biennium should be fairly reliable, that they should be there, that they should be available for projects. Funding outside the biennium in the outer 4 years is much less reliable, that will actually be available for the project in the years stated. So in 2020, outside the biennium years, SPP funds. In the 2022 state highway plan, we see that there are funds within the biennium. 2022, 2023, 2024 design funds and right-of-way funds as listed there, highlighted. In 2023, KYTC asked KIPTA for some additional funds for this project. KIPTA TPC approves SPBG funding for this project. You can see here, design was originally programmed in fiscal year 23. Right-of-way utilities construction totaling the amount that you see there. So, and then let's go to 2024. So this is the current highway plan as of today. There are still SPP funds here listed in 2024, 25, 25, and 26. So we have fairly secure SPP funds from the state and secure STBG funds from KIPTA, all available for the project. The STBG design funds from KIPTA were authorized in fiscal year 24, and so the project has been undergoing design. And they are entering, I believe, stage 2 design, right, Tom? That's kind of where you're at with the status with the project. And so after the updates for stage 2, the finishing PE, they have updated estimates, and they need some additional money for design. And hence the cost increase request for additional funding. However, all this SPP funding that I mentioned that's been in the highway plan in the biennium for years has never been requested for any phase as of today. So in short, KYTC on paper in the highway plan in the biennium has funds available to cover the cost increase, but has elected to not seek authorization of those funds, but instead seeks authorization or seeks additional funds from KIPTA DPC to cover costs. Furthermore, House Bill 502 and House Joint Resolution 75, which are the precursors to the not yet official new state highway plan, demonstrate that SPP funds that were previously programmed or are previously programmed in the current 2024 to 2030 state highway plan will now not be in the biennium. So money that was in the biennium or is in the biennium right now is projected to now not be in the biennium, and therefore not to be available for KYTC to request funds for it once the new highway plan is approved. So they had funding. Instead of using that funding, are coming to KIPTA to ask for funding and taking out their own funding and putting it in outer years in the 6-year highway. That's basically what I just said. There is funding in House Joint Resolution 75, which is the outer years, which is funding for right-of-way and utilities and construction. But as previously mentioned, that money is less secure than funding the biennium. So with all that said, we have money available to cover the cost increase. Pending TPC approval. The project is a good project that we support. The TPC supported. That's why they asked for additional funding, or they granted additional funding way back in 2022. And the TTCC did recommend approval to grant this cost increase request. With that context and everything laid out, I'll leave that decision making to y'all and recommend action on the proposed Kentucky cost increase request.
Stephen knew what he's got saying. Steve.
Oh, excellent. Steve?
Thanks y'all. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context with SPP dollars in particular. Although established by the legislature, those dollars which stands for state priority projects, which is the state funds, only state funds out of the state road fund. while the legislature allocates those are not required to be fiscally constrained. And over the last couple of highway plans, they have been over-programmed by about 30% in the biennium, and by about 300% outside of the biennium. So just from our federal dollars are required to be constrained, but the state dollars that come out of the legislature's highway plan do not always end up constrained.
Okay, so maybe say that in another way in terms of what the advantage is here.
So what I'm saying is, although the highway plan says that those dollars are available, the legislature has allocated more dollars than are actually available, and because we have to also use that money, those state dollars for our federal match, um, there are often times that solo state funded projects are unavailable to be used because the money is just not there.
Hence the being over-programmed.
Yes.
Could probably add a little context on the local level. Basically what happened with this project is, it was recognized as a need, and the transportation cabinet, recognizing we probably wouldn't be able to fund the project with state dollars because of what Steve was explaining. The cabinet brought the project to KIPTA about 3 years ago and asked that it be funded with SLO dollars. And the policy committee agreed to fund this project with SLO dollars. And so we proceeded to start with the design work. And as we got into design, we learned a couple of things. Number one, this is actually a continuation of a metro sidewalk project that was discontinued because the cost of the building this sidewalk was more expensive than the average sidewalk. And that there wasn't enough money. But since it was in a highway plan project, it's a priority for us. So we were fortunate enough to get SLO dollars to work on design. And once we completed preliminary design, which is where we're at today, we understand the true cost of this project. And our hope is that we can continue the design and continue the construction of the project with SLO dollars. It's a beneficial, it's a sidewalk on a state route, which is important for state route safety. It's a priority for Metro. It just was a project that was difficult and money wasn't available to work on it. I think it's a project that meets the goals of the local MPO in that, multimodal improvements. So I think that's a good use of SLO dollars. I will say that, we originally thought the project was gonna be maybe a couple $100,000 sidewalk job, and now we're recognizing it's gonna be more of an investment of about $1 million. But, it meets all those criteria and provides all those benefits. So, we think it's a good project to continue working on. And the fact is that if we don't get additional dollars, we'll probably just roll up the plans and put them on the shelf and forget about it. And that's not really a good use of anybody's money. So and I would also say that, the use of these dollars is being reconsidered in the project management guidebook, which will be discussed later in this meeting agenda. And it kind of speaks to dealing with these kind of issues, and they're putting some corrections in place that these things might not happen so much anymore. And then the other thing is that the MPO chose to support this project a few years ago when they granted us money, and I would hope that the MPO would help us see it through. And that's pretty much all but I think it's a good project and it's working.
That's good context, thank you. We're gonna strike from the record any suggestion that we're gonna roll it up and put it on the shelf, right, Tom?
No, that's probably what we do with it.
Okay.
It's a fact.
All right.
Can I ask it in a different way? The new, or what's about to be the new highway plan suggests that there are these uncertain 300% over program out year dollars that were still on there, but does anybody believe in those becomes part of the question too, right?
History speaks to that, we see these projects, state funded projects, time and time again in recurring highway plans. And some are a significant priority and very important and they get built, but it's only a percentage of them. All the rest of them are kind of just on there in the plan on paper.
But if the TPC said no today, hypothetically, then it would go back to that new highway plan schedule, the House Joint Resolution 75 schedule. That's all we know about now. And we would just have our fingers crossed that that would be amongst the projects that wasn't squeezed out with the over programming. It's probably the fate of that, which probably equals throwing them up and put them on the shelf for a little bit.
Probably.
Okay, sure, it certainly sounds like a worthy cause. Any other questions on the cost increase for Kentucky and what's proposed? All right,
One more comment, I think,
Okay.
just a question, is I understand that even within the biennium years, SPP funds are still over programmed. But is there any confirmation on whether KYDC actually requested the use of the funds that are available in the highway plan?
We requested relative to other projects, it's not that high of a priority, but we do recognize that we're getting to use state construction dollars for the 20% match. So your answer to the question is no. I don't know that we directly put in a funding request and it was denied. But I will say that we're at least participating 20%. And a sidewalk relative to all the other state funded projects on the list, it's pretty low priority. And I just want to say that, the policy committee controls what projects get awarded and get it invited into the SLO program. And I think that's a really important thing to look at in the future. If this is something that we don't want to, the policy committee doesn't want to deal with or doesn't want to support this type of project, that's probably the time to say no to those projects. But in this case, we already felt like we got in, we're part of the program and we want to see the project through. And I know that costs balloon on projects all the time, and this is not going to be any different than that, but it's relative to the larger program. It's not that big of a deal, not that big of a cost. And it does support all the things I said earlier about the MPO goal.
okay. All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So
Second,
Second.
anyone opposed? All those in favor? All right. Item number 8, both Kentucky and Indiana is approved. Next, item number 8 is the amendment for both the TIP and the MTP. Chris?
This one is not in the packet, but I have a QR code on the map. Actually, I think the QR code is in the memo. It is Tip Amendment 4, which is also cross-referenced as MTP number 13, the packet schedule, project list, air quality report, ISC minutes, and public comments should all be available with the version of this QR code. Overview. So for Amendment 4, like I said, it's cross-listed as MTP Amendment 13. These are the same updates, it's just 2 different names until we do our next TIP and MTP update. It's a full amendment with some updates affecting the air quality model. The full project list was reviewed at the April 17th IAC meeting. So even those that didn't affect the model were reviewed then. Comments were sent to all of you folks, the TPC committee on May 13th. Also on May 13th, the TTCC made a recommendation to approve, but with the omission of one project that was on the initial list. I have that project included here, and I'll talk about it when I go to the project list. Okay, in review, amendment updates for project change, or for project changes that require more scrutiny and review than administrative modifications. And as a result, the amendment timeline is pretty lengthy, usually about 3 to 4 months. This is our specific timeline for this amendment. We're gonna be requesting approval at the end of this presentation. Following the approval, the next steps will be that I will send it out to the federal partners to approve our conformity. And then following that, I'll send it to NDOT and KYTC to update. Pardon me. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the NDOT projects. First, these two, the first two, they go together. KIPTA ID 2943, the I-64 and Spring Street interchange project. That one is gonna be having some various changes. And the new project underneath that is an ADA ramp project. It's all happening within the project limits of 2943. Both of these projects, all of the funding is in the illustrative years. So that's an important thing to note. Next, we have KIPTA IDs 3194 and 3155. These are going to be added to the MTP and some other various updates. So the one that I mentioned earlier that we're striking from the packet, that's KIPTA ID 3054. I have it crossed out here. For those following along in the packet, I have it X'd out. When we submit our final page packet, I'm gonna remove that page just to eliminate confusion, but I left it in now just because it was reviewed and up until the TTCC, it was expected that we were gonna keep it, but NDOT requested that we remove it. Okay, so next we've got a unique project. This is the KYTC HSIP project. It's called the Louisville Transportation Safety Improvement Project. It is a $15.9 million project with a wide range of safety improvements throughout Jefferson County. The locations the locations that they targeted are all along the high injury network. So that's great. Anticipated improvements may include road reconfigurations, striping enhancements, signage, pedestrian crossing improvements. So there's a wide range of things that are going on with this project, and there are also a wide range of locations. This map was shared during our public comment period and with the IAC. There's I believe 52 segments. And again, the improvements are varied. However, 10 specific segments included updates which did affect the air quality model. And if anyone has questions on those, I can talk about that after. Moving on, other KYTC projects include KIPTA ID 3312. It's a pavement marker and lens replacement project. This one is an existing group project being added to the MTP that's moved up in cost. And then we also have a new I-71 rest area renovation project for the northbound and southbound at mile point 13 out in Oldham County. Moving on to the metro projects. We have additional changes to the Reimagine 9th Street project. Back in administrative modification 10, which I think we processed in March, there was some shuffling of the funds here to carve out 2 breakout projects in conjunction of the greater Reimagine 9th Street project. And so we did some changes then. Here we're updating the open to public date. And the breakout project that we're adding new in this amendment is the 9th Street pedestrian improvement project. Back in administrative modification 10, we had a new group project called Muhammad Ali and Chestnut River Park Rehab Project. So that's the full connection there. Next, I've got the Olmsted Parkway Multi-Use Path System, Section 3. We're updating the total estimated project cost here. And then finally, I have 3 TARP projects. First, there's a new project, construct maintenance administrative at the administrative facility. And then 2 existing projects, KIPTA IDs 3164 and 3457. We're just doing some updates to the TIP funding and the open to public date. And that's my full list. I'll take any questions and then we'll need to do action for the TIP and MT people.
Yeah, so ideally we would do the MTP action first.
Hey, I think that's not cute.
Maybe.
So may I have a motion for the amendments on the MTP? A second? Before we proceed, I should say we've been joined by Judge Summers, so thank you. Yes. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, so MTP is approved. Next, we have the TIP. May I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Okay.
All those in favor? All right. The TIP is approved. Okay, next we have item number 9, which I hear is historic.
Could be, I don't know.
Okay, all right, on the project management guidebook, very exciting and historic indeed.
Project Manager Guidebook is intended to provide guidance for programming and managing FIPTA's MPO dedicated funding sources. Document outlines FIPTA's call for projects process, provides policies for MPO dedicated projects with cost overruns and or schedule adjustments, and includes procedures for tracking and reporting on these MPO dedicated projects. The EMG was last updated in 2024. We've had 3 working group meetings, 1 in February, 1 in March, and 1 in April. The results of those meetings were a recommended set of policy adjustments to the guidebook that was presented to the TTCC a couple of weeks ago. And the TTCC did recommend approval of the policy adjustments that I'm going to share with you. There's a list of all of the working group attendees who attended at least one of these 3 working group meetings. Many of the individuals here were able to attend all 3, but some due to some scheduling conflicts could only attend 1 or 2 of the individual 3 meetings. But their input was all heard and considered in this process. The general kind of goals to outline what policy adjustments were made to the process are as follows here: to improve early project costs and timeline estimates to set up projects for success. Is kind of goes back to what Tom was talking about, and making sure we're more accurate on the front end so that we don't have as many surprises as we get later on into the implementation stages of these projects. Goal 2, tailor guidebook rules to be more context sensitive, because not all projects face the same issues or of the same scale. We have projects that are very complicated, large scale, and projects that are little sidewalk projects that should have different sets of guidelines for how they're managed. Goal 3, retain fairly required fiscal constraint of the TIP as B2, but also allow more funding opportunity to reward good stewards of MPO dedicated funds. Goal 4, the process should be firm enough for LPAs to be able to hold their consultants or potentially utility providers, elected officials, or others in the process accountable, but still be fair with some grace allowed, as there are always some level of holdups or blockages with the projects that are outside of the control of our LPAs or state agencies. Goal 5, ensure that KIPTA's tracking sheet provides a more reasonable picture of which project phases may actually be obligated in the current year. For example, our current tracking sheet states that in Kentucky, we're gonna obligate $150 million or something like that in this fiscal year, and we will not do that. We will obligate a healthy number, a number that I think I'll be excited to share with you actually in a couple of months. But we will not obligate anywhere close to what we have programmed, and so we want our tracking sheet to be more realistic. To set our expectations in the future going forward. Okay, and so I'm gonna go over quick as I can these recommendations that are listed here in your memo. These are kind of the core adjustments that I'm recommending or asking, requesting approval for today. Next month in June, we will have a finalized, polished guidebook that you will be able to review and approve all the nitty-gritty details that these base core policies are representing here for you. So I'm gonna skip around a little bit. I'm gonna look at number 1 here on the list, call for projects every year in Kentucky, and Indiana remains every 2 years. So historically, we've done both states a call every 2 years. We're gonna do a call every year in Kentucky, but remain 2 years in Indiana. And go all the way to the back here for agenda item, or not agenda item, but number 12, a adjustment that is for both states. It's a minor adjustment. It's basically the same as our current policy. PE phases or design phases in this case must be obligated in the year programmed. Failure to obligate on schedule will automatically remove PE funds in future phases from the funding program. The project must sit out at least one called project cycle with the ability to repeat for funds in future called projects. We already mostly have this rule in place in that you have to obligate your design funds as programmed. This is more of a clarification on that rule. Okay, we'll jump back to number 4 on the list. This is another rule for both states. LPAs will be required. And when I say LPAs, this does include state agencies as well. Project sponsors is probably the more appropriate term here. Will be required to perform both planning level, timeline, and cost estimates in coordination with a third-party consultant hired by KIPTA in consultation with the associated LPA and KIPTA before a call projects application is submitted for any project. Once the stage 1 design or the PE phase is completed, then the LPA must once again perform an updated timeline and cost estimate in coordination with that third-party consultant hired by KIPTA in consultation with the LPA and KIPTA staff. And so that's what Andy mentioned earlier when he was talking about the UPWB about potentially putting some money towards hiring a consultant to help cost estimates and timeline estimates on both the planning level and then especially post PE. Once the PE phase is completed, sponsors typically have a much better idea of what their timeline costs are going to be. We want to make sure that that number is reliable because that timeline and cost estimate is the basis for how the other recommendations work. So we'll get to that in a minute. Number 5 here, or actually number 4. Sorry, number 2. I'm on number 2. Require completion of PE phase before any other phases beyond design are officially programmed with NPO dedicated funding. When a new project is awarded funds, PE funds and design funds will be officially programmed and all other phases will be placed in future projects reserve. And this is also listed in item 5 here where it says initial estimates for remaining phases after preliminary engineering and design will be held within their future projects reserve. In Kentucky, this is number 6. In Kentucky, this official reserve will have a cap of 25% of the combined STBG suballocations program, typically over a 5-year period, and then 50% for the TA and CRP suballocated programs over the same period. This back-end cap restricts how many new PE phases can be active at one time to limit KIPTA from inadvertently overpromising funding. So you have a planning level estimate with the third party. The project sponsor signs off on that estimate. If the TPC likes the project, approves the project, the design funds and PE funds will be officially programmed and all the remaining phases will be in a future projects reserve that are awaiting the PE phase to be completed, the better estimates for timeline and cost to be analyzed. And then when you have that second review with the third party that's approved by the project sponsor, Then, at that point in time, they can request funds from that future projects reserve to be officially programmed in the KIPTA tracking sheet matrix. Right, number 7 here. I think all the rest of them are on this page here. Number 7. The 2+1 phase shift policy will be no more, as replacement projects would be judged based off the aforementioned post-PE total project cost estimate and timeline. The projects would be given 2 years of grace beyond their estimated timeline's original projected letting date, which should already include some level of contingency or right of way and utility delays. So 2-year grace period beyond the projected letting date. And then B here, projects could still compete for cost increases for the project, but cost increases allowed per project would be capped at 25% of the total project cost estimate determined after PE phase completion. So post PE, third party consultant aided estimates. That is the basis for a 25% total project cost increase cap and the 2-year grace period. So that's very important. Number 9. Projects that exceed the 2-year grace period will have all funding removed from the dedicated program and will sit out for the next call for projects. Project may then recompete for funding after 1-year penalty period. Project's original 25% cap will still apply with some allowances for inflation stated there. Number 9, funding for the upcoming fiscal year will be reevaluated each year right before call projects. Only project phases with a high likelihood to obligate funds will be programmed in the upcoming fiscal year. This is going to relate to what we're going to refer to as a biannual reevaluation meeting that will take place around March and around July. But we're going to ensure the tracking sheet is realistic, like I mentioned previously. This will be an opportunity for cost increases for phases that are existing projects, for phases that are likely to obligate either in the current fiscal year or the upcoming fiscal year in the July scenario. Number 10, STBG cost increase reserve is lowered to 10% and only available beginning at the March biannual review meeting. Currently it's 20, lowering it to 10, but that 10% that's taken away from the reserve will be available through the call for projects each year in Kentucky. So it's not really going away, it's just being reallocated so that the cost increase reserve that won't be available until March is more for its intended original use, which is a project that wants to let, especially if it's construction phase or needs some additional assistance in the latter half of the year, there will be money available for it, is the intent there. And then 11, the most a single phase can receive is 50% of the adjusted annual allocation of STBG funds. That's our current policy. This is just a clarification that says this same policy exists, but applies to projects once they have done their post-PE cost estimate stage. So if you're asking money from the future funds reserve to put it in the official programming years, that is where this rule comes into play, the 50% of the adjusted annual allocation of STBG MPO funds. Reason for that is we want to make sure that we don't have our entire budget taken up by a $50 million project that's hard to deliver and therefore takes money away for opportunities for funding for other projects within the region. That's the rationale there, has been in the past. I think that is pretty much all of the base policy recommendations. Like I said, more details coming next month, but happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. And I would request action to approve these base policies.
Okay. And did I understand correctly, next month we'll also be voting?
Yes, that's correct.
So this initial vote is for what?
This vote is basically to approve these core changes that are listed here, and that allows KIPTA staff to basically proceed. Because we're going to need to, if we're going to have a third-party consultant specifically, we need to kind of get started on the process for acquiring them and working out how the next golf project is going to work.
But then next month it gets officially
Yeah,
adopted.
with pretty pictures and diagrams and good stuff.
Yeah.
But this is the guts. This is the key guts of it, for sure.
And there will be some more details, like I said, explaining more fully what a my annual reevaluation meeting will look like, or something like, some of the details will be in there as well, but these are the core.
So the next meeting will have a formal manual that incorporates it.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's an actual item as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any questions? For Brady, anybody who was part of the work group that wants to say anything?
I'd just like to thank Brady and the whole KIPTA team for the work that you put into it. You really invested a lot of time and effort in making thoughtful recommendations, and it gave us a lot to chew on and discuss. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that too, and this is a continuous process, so continuous improvement, so I think we're trying to move down the right direction to help facilitate project delivery. So I think some of these hopefully will get us a little bit closer to some of those overall goals.
Hopefully what this does, it adds flexibility to the projects that are the good stewards projects. And I won't say punish, but some word that's softer than punish, but it yeah, it holds those accountable. That's a good word. Accountability for those projects that need a little bit more of that. And we believe that this can do both.
Prevent the Mount Holly situation of a couple $100,000 to them. Potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, all right, may I have a motion to approve the project management guidebook recommendations?
So move.
In a second,
Second.
all those in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? All right, item number 9 passes. Item number 10, we have administrative modifications to the TIP and MTP.
All right, folks, now I'm gonna talk about some minor updates. The presentation, there we go. So last time we met was in March, which means I've got 2 administrative modifications to talk about today. Number 11, which is also cross-referenced in the MTP as 33, and then TIP admin mod number 12 doesn't have any MTP changes. Okay, so the TPC approval is not required. As a reminder, this is information only. Both of these administrative modifications are in the packet in full. Administrative modification 11 was processed on April 10th of this year, and administrative modification 12 was processed on May 19th. Okay. Administrative modifications are intended for the minor project updates. The major project updates must go through the amendment. Such as the project updates we talked about earlier. I'm gonna go through admin mod 11 first. In the interest of time, I'm not gonna detail every single one of these, but we have 14 NDOT projects that were in this one, and 13 were existing projects, which is pretty cool, but we only had just one new project. Most are TIP funding and total estimated project cost updates. The new project I'll talk a little more about. That one is in the maintenance group, so it's being added as a group project. It's called Charlestown SR3 Drainage Project. This one's gonna be improving drainage along State Route 3 near State Route 62. It's within the threshold for the group category, so it's a $14.2 million project. And then a few more NDOT projects here. These are all existing projects with minor changes to the TIP funding, and in this case, open to public date. Then I have 4 Kentucky projects in administrative modification 11. We've got the Louisville Metro project, KIPTA ID 2624. So this one might look familiar. I just talked about it in the amendment. It's the Olmsted Parkways Multi-Use Path System Section 3. I just want to note here that this administrative modification was processed on April 10th, which was before all of the review periods for the amendment. So, and I did double check that earlier. So, it's kind of backwards that I'm talking about the design change. Doing a phase shift here. And I already had that in the project listing for the amendment, but technically it did happen first. I'm just talking about it second.
Just pretend that Chris is talking to you in late April, not late May.
Yes, exactly. Then I have 3 KYTC I-65 bridge projects. These were all group projects previously in the tip. We made some updates to funding and the open to public dates. As we all know, those are gonna be getting worked on pretty hard. Now I'm gonna go
But
to,
something's happening and
yeah. I'm gonna go to administrative modification 12 projects. There's just 6 here, and again, no MTP updates in this one. The first 2 are NDOT projects. We have the I-265 and I-65 tree removal and clearing projects. These are both getting updates to the TIP funding and the total estimated project cost. Then I've got 1 new maintenance group project. It's Seymour District raised pavement markings and refurbishments. That one is throughout the Seymour District. Then I have a Clark County project, KIPTA ID 3476 Bethany Road and County Road 403 intersection improvements. That's just getting a phase shift. And we have a Louisville Metro project. I mentioned this one earlier because it was in Avenue Mod 10, the Muhammad Ali and Chestnut River Park rehab. This one is just updating the state ID that we have listed. And then last but not least, we have a KIPTA project, our rideshare project. We are updating the TIP funding. We have no action because they are administrative modifications.
Excellent. Any questions for Chris? All right, thank you for the update. Item number 11 is our federal certification review. I'm sure you guys are glad to have that behind you.
Indeed we are.
Would you like to provide an update?
Sure, just wanted to let everybody know that KIPTA got its once every 4 years checkup from Federal Highways, Federal Transit, and from the EPA, otherwise known as the Federal Certification Review. That happened on May 6th and 7th, as you all probably heard us talk about in the run-up to that meeting. It was a little bit compressed schedule compared to the other years, the other versions of it, but it worked fine. The focus was on a few key, I think they called them risk-based assessments. Okay, and so that included, transit planning, bike ped planning, safety security planning, NEPA and environmental connections. We definitely kept the staff during the session, definitely tried to highlight, maybe let's say our more core things, the TIP, the MTP, our process, our public involvement, our air quality involvement. And so those I guess were not as risky as some of the others. So we were happy to share all the good news about the good stuff and about some of the stuff we do on the items they wanted to talk about. So that was day 1. It was a 2-day event. It was that was the half day on day 1. That evening, we hosted a public hearing, a public meeting in St. Matthews. Thank you, Bernie, and to St. Matthews for hosting us over at the Arterburn over there. We had we didn't have a whole lot of folks, but our vice chairperson, myself, and Greg had a good conversation with one of tomorrow's young leaders for our community. Fantastic young man, had a distinct interest in transportation planning. He heard we were having a meeting about it, and I bet he talked to the 3 of us for the better part of a whole hour, didn't he? It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Came back here on KIPTA on day 2. The federal review team, they met in the room across the hall, kind of privately. And then they came back in here and we had another hour or 2 session with them where they talked about some of our findings. Okay, so the findings would have traditionally over the years been presented to the TPC the day of or on day 2. This year they did not do that. So we won't get the official ones until the draft report comes out in a month or 2. However, the way these things work is there's basically you get your report card kind of consists of 3 things. Commendations are attaboy, attagirl, you're doing great. We're going to tell other NPOs what you're doing and share the good news. Recommendations saying, hey, you might look into doing this a little different. You're not breaking any federal law by doing it a certain way you are, but you might consider this other way of doing something. And then corrective actions, which is, hey, you're required to do it a certain way, and we're gonna write you up, and you got 180 days to fix it, or some period of time to fix it. All signs point to a very good report card this time around. So it does not appear we're gonna have any corrective actions, which is awesome. I think that would be a first if so. Recommendations, there's gonna be a few, probably a couple of those. We do have a meeting, the staff does, with the federal review team in mid-June to kind of talk about some of those, to get clarity, frankly, on some of the things they mentioned on day 2 of what they wanted to see. It doesn't sound like anything's a major cost per alarm, but it does sound like there's a few commendations coming our way, and so I'd like to share those with you all today. So one of those is for our public outreach process. They really loved the work that Greg that Greg leads for KIPTA, and then KIPTA does more generally, but Greg does most of that for us, as you all know. And so I think you all appreciate Greg already, but a big shout out to Greg for that and that notoriety. They also liked our Safe Streets and Roads for All efforts. Remember, that was the one where we created not one regional plan, but 17 plans, 16 local ones and 1 regional one. So they really liked that idea and some of the work we did there over the last couple of years. Big shout out to Zach Herzog and his team for the GIS tools. They were in love with our GIS tools. The way we hosted that meeting up on the screen, we had what's known as a story map. You've seen us present story maps over the years. That story map had all of the agenda item sessions on it, and then it also had some of the other highlights. And so I think that helped keep that meeting going, keep it moving. We had links, we had maps, we had graphs up there, all sorts of good stuff, and I think that was pretty successful. And that's to say that was a great GIS tool for that day or those 2 days, but they were really proud of what we do overall. And then the other thing they liked, and I hope you guys like it too, is the idea that we have an expedited project application on some of these changes. For example, some of those ones in the administrative modifications that Chris was just mentioning. Well, most of them don't need the full treatment when you all get on our website to do the applications, and many of them just need the expedited application. So I guess not everybody else, I guess the other appeals must not be doing that because they really like that idea. So all we know is what we know on some level, you know what I mean? That we do the things that work for us as not just staff, but working with you guys in the local governments and state governments around here. And so we're happy when they say you're doing great doing those things. So just a little bit of recap. We should expect our final report in September. Okay, I think they have 90 days from a certain date. So we're told to expect that in September. Should be a draft by August. And then there's one more deadline, June 12th. Any stakeholder feedback. If any of your all's agencies wanted to provide feedback in writing, June 12th was that deadline. Those can be sent to Tanya Higdon. I don't believe Tanya is on today. Tanya Higdon, I think most of you all know, formerly KYTC, but currently a Federal Highways Administration Kentucky division. Those can be addressed to her. And if anybody needs her email address or address, please let me know that I can to you. And last but not least, I definitely want to shout out to the KIPTA staff that were involved in this. For at least, I think, half of the group, it was their first time around, as that is, half of us weren't here 4 years ago. Other half have been for a few of these. And this level of clean bill of health, a good report card is a testament to their hard work and the way they've really grown, or we've grown as a staff over the last few years. So I'm really proud of everybody here. So that concludes our report. Happy to answer any questions. And big shout out to you all that participated, whether it's at the public meeting or during the day. A lot of folks in the room were here, better part of that day and a half process. So we definitely appreciate your all support on that as well.
I just want to echo that. Thank you, Andy and your staff. It's nice to see that you get some of these good positive comments on the process. It's very complicated, so.
No, we're excited.
Kudos to all of you and your staff.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good for another 100,000 miles, right?
4 more years, whatever comes first.
Yeah, well, thank you. Seemed like a really good process and it was a lot of work. Also would say, just to echo Matt, that it's what you guys do every day that counts, that you then get to spotlight during the review. So certainly appreciated. Item number 12 is the director's report. Do you have some updates for us?
Just a couple things really quick, because I know we're running out of time here. We'd like to recognize, we heard from Steve earlier, Steve DeWitt from KYTC. I recognize him, and Tracy. I don't think we recognize those folks. Tracy Lovell from District 5. Thank you guys for joining us. And I don't think I recognize Mike King. Mike King's online. So hey, Mike, thank you all for joining us. Mike's from Louisville Metro. Make a note that no KIPTA board or TPC meetings are likely to be scheduled for July. So we'll see everybody next month in June, and we'll see you again in August. So we'll take a July summer holiday, I suppose. And also just want to point out something for those that haven't heard yet. I think it was like the 17th or 18th, so within the past week or so. I mentioned a little bit earlier. There's something called the Build America 250 Act. The Build America 250 Act is it's the replacement for the IIJA. So it remains to be seen. The IIJA expires at the end of this federal fiscal year in September. So there will need to be an extension of that if Congress can't perhaps get its act together by then, or there's something on the table now for them. It's called the Build America 250 Act. So here's the acronym. It's actually a good one. Usually they're cheesy, but I think this one's pretty good. Remember, Build America 250 Act. Building Unrivaled Infrastructure and Long-Term Development for America's 250th Act. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool acronym. They've been some cheesy ones, and I don't know if that one's cheesy or not. But anyways, if you hear that, that's what that is. And that's big. That's a big deal. And there actually are a lot of things that are very favorable to local governments and regional planning. So there are some things to be excited about there.
Is there a way we could get like a summary of that?
I think we probably can get that to you. I think through our association with AMPO, Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. I think there was something that crossed our desk within the past week. It's brand new, like it was literally last week. And so very importantly on that AMPO front, a lot of the suggestions that AMPO has had have shown up. Notably, 80-20 goes to 90-10 on the federal planning funds, an increase in planning funds, potentially a change in what these PL, we talked about PL funds earlier, they can go toward. They can't go toward building things. They never have been. It has to do planning studies, data acquisition, etc. But they are going to ramp that up a little bit potentially in terms of maybe even allowing certain levels of design to occur to it. So remains to be seen how that plays out. Another thing is what's been proposed is that MPOs could choose an option to be the direct recipients of those federal funds, as opposed to getting those funds via KYTC and NDOT. Talking to their MPO brethren, it's kind of a mixed bag on whether MPOs would like that or not. And maybe that's a conversation for this TPC sometime in the future if we would choose that option or not, but we'll see on that one. So that concludes my MPO director's report. Happy to answer any questions about anything else.
Any questions for Andy? All right, we look forward to seeing more about the Building America 250 Act. All right. Any other business? Okay. All right, well, with that, I want to say, Judge Summers, you were missed. We look forward to seeing you next month. And I need a motion to adjourn.